This is one of the longest coastlines in the Caribbean, and almost nobody lives on it. 5 centuries of empires tried to conquer it and all of them failed. If you look at a nighttime map of the Caribbean, you'll see something strange. From the Dominican Republic to Barbados, the coastlines glow with cities and resorts. Now trace the coastline southwest past the Yucatan Peninsula, past Belize, down through Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama. You'll notice almost complete darkness. No cities or resorts, just jungle running straight into water for hundreds of miles. This is the Caribbean coast of Central America. It sits on the exact same warm sea as Cancun and Jamaica, yet it's one of the most economically empty coastlines in the world. The question is simple: why? When the Spanish arrived in the early 1500s, they looked at both coasts. They chose the Pacific. Every single major colonial city in Central America was built on the Pacific side or in the highland interior. Capital cities such as Guatemala City, San Jose, Managua, Tegucigalpa, not one of them faces the Caribbean. The environment alone would have been enough to put most people off, but the Caribbean coast had another weapon: disease. The standing water, the heat, permanent humidity, it created ideal breeding conditions for malaria and yellow fever. For most of the colonial period, sending men to work on the Caribbean lowlands was effectively a death sentence. Labour forces died faster than they could be replaced. Any serious attempt at settlement meant watching your workforce disappear within months. The jungle compounded everything. Clear an acre of land and within a few years the forest had taken it back. Build a road and the rain destroyed it before it could be used. The coast didn't just resist development, it actively punished it. So for roughly 300 years of Spanish colonial rule, the Caribbean coast of Central America was left almost entirely alone. No investment or infrastructure. You would assume the British Empire could succeed where Spain failed. They didn't. In the 17th century, Britain established what became known as the Mosquito Coast Protectorate, a stretch of the Caribbean shore of Nicaragua and Honduras, named not after the insect but after the mosquito people who already lived there. The British allied with the Mosquito Kingdom, set up trading posts, and for a while genuinely believed they could build something even the Spanish had missed. Even the British couldn't make it work. This is worth sitting with for a moment. The British Empire at this point was colonising India, Australia, large parts of Africa and North America. They were not in the habit of just giving up on coastlines, and yet the Caribbean coast of Central America defeated them too. The same problems kept recurring: no natural deep-water harbours suitable for serious trade, and disease that killed workers and soldiers alike. By the mid-1800s, partly through pressure from the United States, and partly through sheer exhaustion, Britain withdrew. They handed what remained of their influence to the newly independent Central American republics and left. What they left behind was something strange. Scattered communities of mosquito people, Afro-Caribbean descendants of the enslaved workers Britain had brought in, all now living inside Spanish-speaking countries that had almost no connection to them. Go to Bluefields in Nicaragua today and you'll hear Creole English spoken on the street.
To go back home and to investigate and find out where you are coming from.
It sounds completely out of place until you understand what happened there. It's a linguistic ghost, the trace of an empire that tried and gave up. The answer to why these two great empires failed begins with a mountain range. Central America's geography is trapped by a single feature, the Cordillera Central. This is a massive span of mountains and volcanoes running the full length of the land. And they run the wrong way. To connect a Caribbean port to the rest of the continent, you need mountains that run east to west, natural corridors you can cross. Instead, these ranges run north to south, parallel to the coast. They act as a giant brick wall, dividing the land into two completely different worlds. On the Pacific side, the slopes are manageable and the climate is dry, but on the Caribbean side, those mountains catch every single raindrop coming off the Atlantic. This lowland jungle is one of the wettest places on Earth. With over 6,000 millimeters of rain a year, it has 10 times more rain than London. For 3 centuries, the global consensus was clear. This coast was unmasterable. But what if the problem wasn't the jungle? What if the empires just weren't ruthless enough? Because then something changed. Not because a government decided to invest in the coast, not because the geography improved, but because an American businessman looked at all the empty jungle and saw something nobody else had seen. His name was Minor Keith. In the 1870s, he'd taken a contract from the Costa Rican government to build a railway connecting the capital, San Jose, to the Caribbean port of Limon. It was a brutal project. The jungle killed his workers in enormous numbers with yellow fever and malaria. 3 of his own brothers died during construction. Keith himself nearly went bankrupt several times. But while he was waiting for the railway to start turning a profit, he planted bananas on the land either side of the tracks. And it turned out that the same wet, hot, relentlessly rainy Caribbean lowlands that had defeated the Spanish and exhausted the British were, for bananas, absolutely perfect. And that discovery changed everything almost immediately. Within a few years, the coastline stopped being a forgotten edge of empire. It became something far more valuable. Banana plantations spread along the railway faster than any government could regulate or even understand. And for the first time in centuries, this coast wasn't being ignored. It was being taken over. But it wasn't a country doing it. It was a company, the United Fruit Company. And it didn't behave like a normal business. It controlled the land, the railways, the ports, and the labour force all at once. Locals didn't have a name for what had taken over the coast, so they gave it one. El Pulpo, the octopus, because its reach didn't just cover the coastline, it wrapped around the entire region. For the first time, serious infrastructure appeared on this coast. United Fruit built railways, hundreds of miles of them, running from its inland plantations down to the Caribbean ports. It built those ports, it strung telegraph lines throughout its jungle, it constructed hospitals and housing for its workers. In some areas it ran the post offices. It looked on the surface like the development this coast had always been waiting for. But none of that infrastructure was built for the countries it was in. The railways didn't connect to national capitals, they connected United Fruit's land to United Fruit's ports. The company roads led to its own facilities. The whole system was a closed loop. It was designed to do one thing: move bananas from the plantation to a refrigerated ship. Local citizens weren't even allowed on the trains. By the 1930s, it owned 3.5 million acres of land across Central America, making it the single largest landowner in Guatemala. Its annual revenues dwarfed the national budgets of the countries it operated in. It had its own private army. It had enough leverage over Central American governments that it could, and did, push for the overthrow of elected leaders who threatened its interests. The term Banana Republic wasn't invented as a joke. It was a description of something United Fruit had actually engineered. And then the company left. Blight destroyed the Gros Michel banana variety that had made it rich. Labour strikes, change in politics, and the rising cost of operations made the Caribbean coast less attractive. Across the region, United Fruit sold its land, pulled up its railways, and moved on. What remained was a coast that had been transformed briefly by corporate money and then abandoned again. The railways were gone, and the workers who'd been brought in from Jamaica and elsewhere to pick bananas stayed, because they had nowhere else to go, adding another layer of an already complicated ethnic and cultural patchwork. The jungle started growing back over everything almost immediately. When the banana company left, the Central American republics inherited the coast that had already been through 2 cycles of foreign exploitation and abandonment. So the governments did what the Spanish and British had done. They focused on the Pacific side, where the cities already were, where the people were, where the infrastructure existed, and the Caribbean coast was left to govern itself. Nicaragua's Caribbean region today covers roughly half the country's total land area and holds only 10% of the population. For generations, there wasn't a single paved road connecting it to the capital, Managua. And while a highway finally reached Bluefields recently, the vast majority of this isolated coast remains entirely cut off. Honduras has a similar situation. The La Mosquita region covers around 20,000 square kilometers of jungle with almost no road access, and when state presence is minimal, other kinds of powers move in. Drug trafficking organisations have used the Caribbean coast of Central America as a transit corridor for decades. The remoteness of the land turns out to be a drug smuggler's dream. If you're moving cocaine north from South America, this empty coast is paradise. The Spanish avoided it, the British failed to hold it, a corporation built an empire on it and left the moment it stopped being profitable. And today, nothing has really changed, because the coastline was never waiting to be developed. It was only ever being worked around, and it still is. If you want to learn more about how geography shapes the world we live in, please subscribe.